So you've been considering leaving the Big Apple for the city of big shoulders. I don't blame you. It's one of the best decisions we've ever made. Chicago gives me largely all the New York City lifestyle, but less crowded, more neighborly, far more affordable, cleaner, easier to have a car if you want, and overall just more livable. Chicago definitely fits the bill currently. My name is Pauline Mellon with Fulton Grace Realty. I get texts, calls, and emails every single day from people just like you wondering if there's life beyond New York City and making their move to Chicago. And as a transplant New Yorker, I love it. Whether you are moving in 9 days or 9 weeks, give me a call, shoot me a text, or send me an email. I'd be happy to make that transition seamless. If you're new to this channel and you want to know everything about living in Chicago, then hit the notification bell so you can be the first to know about the current market in Chicago. New York City is far more expensive than Chicago. The cost of living in NYC is 85% more expensive than in the Windy City. According to PayScale, the cost of living in New York is 129%, whereas it's only about 23% higher than the average in Chicago. In addition, in Chicago, utility is actually 10% lower than the standard, whereas in New York, they are 25% higher. The average cost of groceries and transportation is also more expensive in New York than in Chicago. But the biggest difference is housing. The average sales price of a home in New York is $745,000, while in Chicago, it's only roughly around $315,000, and these are 2023 prices. When it comes to weather, neither city is particularly known for its great weather, but New York tends to have slightly favorable conditions. They both offer a substantial seasonal change with cold winters and dry summers, but Chicago tends to be slightly colder in the winter. While the summers are just as hot and humid, New York has a modified maritime climate that is warm and moisturized by the Atlantic Ocean. Chicago is positioned on Lake Michigan, which doesn't do as much to warm the air and features a continental climate that is more frigid in the winter. Plus, New York only averages about 25 inches of snowfall per year, whereas Chicago averages around 35. While the public transportation in both cities is among the best in the US, nothing beats New York's MTA system. NYC is known for its 24-hour subway system and reliable line of buses that can get you almost anywhere in the five boroughs at any time of the day. Plus, Manhattan is set up on a grid, making it easy to get around, and there are far more express trains. Chicago's L system is also considered among the best in the country, but is a bit more spread out and only a few lines run all night. It's been quite a few years since I left New York City. I left in 2019, and back then the MTA was having a lot of train issues. Besides the usual NYC grunge, there were more train delays and service disruptions. This added to the average commute time. I always spent between 40 minutes to an hour each way, just going from one place to another because of the sheer size of New York City. Here in Chicago, it's pretty much around 25 to 35 minutes. For commute times, Chicago tends to offer a slightly shorter commute times than New York. On average, New Yorkers tend to spend about 41 minutes commuting compared to 35 minutes in Chicago. Close to 50% of all Chicago residents commute via car, compared to only 22% of New York. The majority use public transportation. While Chicago has more direct suburbs with easy access to the city, New York tends to attract residents who live in nearby cities in Connecticut, New Jersey, or upstate New York. The largest percentage of commuters in Chicago live about 30 to 35 minutes away, whereas in New York, about 19% of commuters live between 60 and 89 minutes away from their job. Chicagoans complain about the CTA, but it's orders of magnitude more reliable than the MTA. Find yourself a place along an L line and your life will be better. Chicago and New York are both known for their unique food and lifestyle. While New York is more fast paced and diverse, Chicago is more laid back and is well known for its contributions to the arts. New York's culinary scene is world famous, with more than 70 Michelin star restaurants and food from nearly every culture on the planet. But Chicago can boast the invention of deep dish pizza and tends to feature fresher ingredients due to all the nearby farms. In general, New York is a much faster paced culture that is work oriented, whereas Chicago is a bit more chill and offers a better work life balance. Both cities feature world famous cultural institutions and have made significant contributions to the arts. But New York offers energy and variety that can't be matched. For city culture, the biggest cultural difference between New York and Chicago is the pace of life. Chicago is downright sleepy compared to New York City, but that may be attractive to some residents. New York is the city that never sleeps and features a diverse local culture where there is always something to do. In comparison, Chicago is more laid back, but known for its developments in the arts, specifically theater, stand-up comedy, and music, which better boils down to personal preferences as they both have a lot to offer. But New York certainly offers more energy and variety. Another thing, of course, rents are cheaper, but the buildings in Chicago tend to be newer too. If you're interested to know about the cost of living in Chicago, I have made a video just for that. Please see the links in my description. And going back to housing opportunities, properties are well kept, cleaner, updated, and there is a lot of options to choose from. Most enjoy living in courtyard style apartments by the lake. There are a plethora of architectural buildings to choose from and also new constructions. Before you move, explore the quintessential residential architecture styles that make our Chicago city unique. There's Workers Cottage, great examples ring in the downtown area, but predominantly can still be found throughout Westtown, Logan Square, Humboldt Park, and Westtown, as well as in Lower West Side, Bridgeport, McKinley Park, and New City. 2 or 3 flats alongside the bigger 4 and the 6 flats make up over 30% of Chicago's total housing stock. 2 and 3 flats became popular around 1910s as a way to affordably own a home. Families could buy the property, live in one unit, and then rent the other to help pay their mortgage. Chicago bungalow, the bungalow belt begins in Rogers Park, curving south and west along neighborhoods including Portage Park and Dunning through Austin, Archer Heights, and West Lawn, then cuts east through Chicago Lawn, Auburn Gresham, Washington Heights, Roseland, Pullman, South Deering, and East Side Courtyard. Courtyard apartments are citywide but very predominantly in the north side neighborhoods, including Lakeview, North Center, Uptown, Edgewater, and Rogers Park. As for Queen Anne styles, they came into popularity in the 1880s until the early 1900s. The term doesn't come from Queen Anne's reign in the 1700s. Instead, it refers to the aesthetic ideas that come from that time of opulence and extravagance. High-rise. High-rise complexes started popping up across the US in the late 1800s when space was at a premium and density created demand for living options. The only way to go was up. At that time, brick, limestone, and terracotta were used to build in Chicago, but those materials could only handle so much weight, about 10 floors worth. So when commercial high-rises started being built with glass, steel, and concrete, so did apartment complexes. The Greystone was Chicago's response to the New York City's brownstones in the late 1800s. The name comes directly from its limestone building material, which is locally sourced from Indiana. 4 square homes were made to be the exact opposite of the highly ornamental Queen Anne. In the late 1800s, these homes became popular with middle-class residents all around the US as a go-to mail order kit. What's your favorite Chicago residential architecture style? Hit me up in the comments. Both cities offer a variety of job opportunities at top companies, but the sheer size of New York means that it has a large and more diverse job market. New York offers jobs in various industries, including finance, tech, medicine, and law. Chicago also has a diverse economy with opportunities in finance, insurance, manufacturing, publishing, and food processing. The number of private sector jobs in New York City increased by over 350,000 in the final months of 2020, whereas in Chicago it was closer to 160,000. Plus, employers in New York pay on average 11.8% more in New York City than Chicago, although this barely offsets the difference in cost of living. At the end of the day, this is where it mostly boiled down to. The Quality of Life Index. According to an index developed by the Numbeo, Chicago has a slightly higher quality of life than New York. This scale was developed using data on the city's crime statistics, employment data, climate, healthcare, quality, housing prices, and statistics on traffic and pollution. According to all these metrics, Chicago scored 156.56, which is considered very high. In comparison, New York scored 138.09, which is considered moderate. The biggest factor impacting the differences in the score was the high cost of living in New York compared to the average income. Both cities rank among the most influential and culturally important metropolises in the world, but New York has a bit more to offer when it comes to energy and possibility. It features a variety of employment and recreational opportunities that you won't find in Chicago. Plus, it has slightly better weather and diversity. That I miss. Chicago also has a lot to offer residents, and many may prefer to the more relaxed pace of life. For me, the biggest negative is just the lack of bodegas and mediocre bagels, but I can always take a hike to Manny's Deli for that. The pros definitely outweigh the cons. Honestly, I miss New York sometimes, but being able to just kind of feel like being part of something important, even if you're just wandering around. But nowadays, I love Chicago, and I am happy to call it home. So if you are thinking of having a change of pace and moving from New York City to Chicago, shoot me a text, give me a call, or send me an email. I'd be happy to make that move smooth.